Hey, welcome to the pre-class. Today we'll be learning about ES6 classes. So to give you an hint what ES6 classes will do, first of all, this is the concept introduced in ES6. It wasn't there before. ES6 classes will allow us to create objects and will also allow us to implement inheritance. Now those two words, to be able to create objects and to be able to implement inheritance. Have we done that before? Can you recall any particular concept we learned where we might have done something like that? Absolutely. We have learned about constructor functions where we could basically create objects using new keyword, using this keyword, and implement inheritance by adding properties to the prototype, right? So now I will just write a constructor function, just quickly recap it. Let's say I want to create a person. This dot name is equal to n, and let's give him an age as well. Now the way we create is basically const person one, it's in the parameter as well. And if I go back, you can see my person is there. If I want to add some more properties to it, I can directly add to its prototype in this fashion. Person dot prototype dot, let's say, city. I can type in as spoon. You can write function method as well, something that we already done. So if I go back here, that city property is in its prototype, as you can see. So that's how it is inheriting that thing from inheriting from this particular prototype from this function, right? So now that's about constructor function, and that's something we are already well aware about. So then what is this new ES6 classes? You just said that basically we can create objects with it. Yeah, we can do that. So what are the differences and why ES classes is introduced? First of all, a big alert, this is a completely new syntax, a kind of syntax that you have not seen before. So have a look at it. First of all, when you want to create a class, remember we are creating a class here. So class is kind of similar to constructor function. You have to provide what kind of blueprint you want, what kind of properties you want on the class. Just like we have these properties on a constructor function, you can add for the class as well. So first of all, you have to type the name class, then the name of the class. Now there is no open brackets because remember we don't invoke person because person is a class. Remember this person is a class, so that's why I will be putting in curly brackets. That's the syntax of it. But for me to able to create an object, I need a function. Ultimately I am going to need a function, and that function, the name of it for this ES6 class is called constructor. Again, the same as we have learned before, and now inside of it you can just pass in this properties. You can see the difference how constructor has an open bracket because this is what we have to invoke. Even though in the syntax it looks different, like when we'll be actually trying to create an object, but ultimately this is what will get invoked. Let's just pass in the parameters as well. And now all I have to do, I can just basically copy paste this code, exact same code. And if I console.log it, go back, you can see I'm getting the exact same person with Raj, age, all the properties as you can see. And now the constructor is this class ES6 class, which is basically executing this constructor function. Remember, as you can see, it is evident to you ultimately what it is doing under the hood is working as an constructor function. It's just that it looks like a class. So then what's the point of actually adding this new keyword? Like this is an unnecessary code, right? I can just do the same thing using function keyword and seems more easy to read and all those stuff, right? So first of all, classes is a very important concept in a program, especially for those people who are coming from object-oriented JavaScript, sorry, object-oriented programming, where objects are the fundamental part of their coding. And how objects are created in other programming language, let's say like Java, we use classes a lot. They use classes a lot, like just like we use function, they use classes. Like classes is their primary way of building stuff in Java. And Java being a more popular language, many developers who want to shift to JavaScript, they would like to have that feature, the feature of classes in JavaScript. So that's why, to support this developer to grow the community of JavaScript so that more and more people can join in, ES6 classes was introduced. It's no mandatory for you to use ES6 classes. If you want to go with constructor function, that's completely fine, because what this class is doing under the hood, internal implementation, is basically it is mimicking the constructor function. As you can see, it has literally the name as constructor. This is what gets invoked. This is just a syntactical sugar, just to let Java developers feel good, like they will feel at home when they look at this keyword like class. Since we are not Java developers, we don't worry about class keyword, but this is something you should be aware about, because other developers might write this kind of code, and at that point you shouldn't be surprised by what is this class keyword. We don't know anything about it, so that's why class keyword is there. So number one thing, uh, you can use anything you want. It's just that to attract more Java developers, to attract more object-oriented programmers, to make them home, class keyword was introduced. So now this is about properties, right? How can I add a function method? So you can add a function method directly here as well, just like we were doing in constructor function. So console.log this dot name. I go back to the person, it's the issue. So I go back, my show name function is now inside of a person, and this is how it is. But like here, basically I was able to add the function method or the properties to the prototype so that my actual object wasn't getting manipulated. I was able to see that in proto, I was able to access that, and my original object wasn't getting manipulated by this lot of function method, because this looks ugly, right? So now how can I do the same thing? How can I add the prototype here? So is there any way for me to do person dot prototype, something like that? No, you don't have to do it. All you can do is basically start writing your method here directly. So show name console.log this dot name. Now if I go back, you can see that show name method is not available on the person object, like it is not included in the object itself, but you should be able to find that in the proto. That means you should be able to invoke it. So if I do person dot show name here, it will work completely fine. I'm able to get the output as Raj. So see the difference, the tiny differences that we have here. We can add the methods to the prototype using person.prototype.method name for constructor function. For ES6 classes, there is no need to type that much amount of code, and many people like that. Even though the people who never use Java, they like this kind of code, because all you can do is now just keep on writing this code, and this seems much better. All your properties are in this constructor, and all your methods are basically set on the prototype itself. They won't manipulate your actual object. Personally, if I have to implement, if I have to use ES6 classes for creating objects, I would prefer them more than constructor function, because it looks more readable. It seems easy to understand, even though this is something new, but with practice, you should be able to get that. But again, it's ultimately your choice what you want to do with it. Now, this is the clear distinction between an ES6 class and constructor function that we just have looked. Now, there is one more way, and one more thing we need to cover, and that is inheritance in ES6 classes. So how can I inherit properties of one ES6 class onto another ES6 class? So let's look at that now. So now let's say we have this person. Now even a teacher, student, carpenter, anything at all, they are obviously a person. So we want to, let's say, create a new class, class named student. But since that class student will ultimately be a person, like almost every student, every student is a person. So this property should directly get added to the student class. I don't want to keep on writing this line of code again and again. So now all I have to do, I have to use a new keyword called as extends. Okay, so class student extends what it is extending, obviously the person class, because it is getting the properties from that class. Now again, you have to type in your constructor. So constructor n and a. Now, do I have to type this thing, this dot name, because I have just typed n and a, and this would kind of make sense, right? Because it is going to work, but we don't want it like that. Let's say if there are many more, something like this, then this is not a feasible solution. So for that, we have a keyword called as super keyword. So we are learning a lot of new keywords today. So super, what does super does? All you have to do is just pass in the parameters like n and a. It will take this parameter. So why it is called super? It's like a kind of Superman. It will go to its parent is person here, as you can see on the right hand side, and then it will actually go here and it will execute this function with which parameter? This n and a. So it is kind of similar to this. So instead of super, this gets kind of executed. Okay, this whole thing kind of gets executed with the super keyword, so you don't have to worry about it. And let's say if you want to add the more properties by yourself on the student class, which should be owned by the student class itself, so I can do, let's say this dot role is equal to student. Now how can I invoke it? Basically I can invoke it in the same way. Just out. So not new person, we want a new student now. Raj 24, everything is fine. Let's console.log him now. And as you can see, the name Raj and age 24 are being inherited directly from this person object using what? Using a super keyword and using an extend keyword. If you don't include the super keyword, it will throw you an error called you need to must call super constructor in derived class, because see, student is a derived class. It is derived from person. So you have to make sure that to get the properties of it, you need to use super keyword. Now, if we look deeply into it, so what will be the prototype of student? It will be the student class, that's the constructor. And what will be the proto of that student? It will be the person class itself, and ultimately it will be an object. Something we have learned that everything in JavaScript is an object. So that's our prototype chain. So in the actual class, we will be playing more with it, trying to do some cool things, and it will be a fun, but understand that it is same to constructor function. It's just new keywords, new way of writing, new way of doing the same thing, and that's ES6 classes. More if you want a more of an object oriented programming, more of these kind of classes and all that stuff, then ES6 classes is for you.